I'm also the primary caregiver to my husband of 25 years. Again, I apologize. I did submit testimony, and I'm going to go off script. After listening to this testimony today, observing the things that I have, I'm unfortunately not going to be able to read that, but I do encourage you, once you see it, to please read it. I've noticed just in the time here today, multiple times of masks not only being worn incorrectly, but being touched, and then a surface touched, and then touched again, thus cross-contamination. So at some point in time, we have to say, is that mask truly effective? Are we compromising the integrity? In addition to that, Senator Craig, on December 21st, you posted, "I could not be more pleased, not for the legislative accomplishment, but for the impact the new law will help. This new law will help have on the lives of everyday citizens in the need of critical medical care. This law will help us remove barriers to treatment for patients and families already facing difficult diagnosis and tough physical, emotional, and financial challenges." Senator Craig, I applaud your accomplishments on SB 252. However, due to the restrictions imposed by the governor, 20% of cancer patients have had treatment stopped during the pandemic. I wish he was here to ask him, does this bill help them get access when ambulatory services are told to stop under the governor and the Ohio Department of Health joint orders? I would also like him to know, and hopefully he will get to view this when he returns, the same day he posted, I was faced with the challenge of reinserting a peg tube that had fallen out of my husband at home, alone, with nothing more than a phone call, all because the governor has an order restricting in-home health services. And I would ask him, if he were here, if he is pleased. Does he support the governor and these orders that restrict Ohioans from qualified access to care? Knowing this, how could he possibly feel SB 22 is less important than 252? Are some Ohioans' lives worth more than others? Senator Thomas, on January 27th, you said, we should be focusing on protecting the health of all Ohioans. Once you have availability to the pictures I sent, I would ask you to please look at that picture, then explain to me how removing in-home care and services during a pandemic is safe, or did your words only apply to those Ohioans that fit your narrative? In addition to that, I have written a letter, and I've contacted our governor multiple times in Ohio Department of Health with no response. So I'm here today to read it to you. Dear Governor DeWine, I was asked how the pandemic had affected us, and I stood speechless. My husband was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia in 2019. FTD is a neurodegenerative disease. It's also the leading cause of dementia in patients under 60. It does not present as what most typically think of. It is not your grandma's dementia, nor is it Alzheimer's disease. Sometimes it is accompanied by a co-condition, usually a motor neuron disease, and most commonly ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease. Because of the age of diagnosis, very few services are available. Traditionally, families have suffered in silence, commonly called a glass coffin. Patients lose their ability to speak, move, swallow, and eventually breathe. A vent is necessary to live. There is no treatment, no cure, and it is 100% fatal. The average lifespan is 2 to 5 years. Once diagnosed with both, the lifespan is even shorter. For years, advocates have fought for access to experimental treatment for 100% fatal diseases. So we watched in awe as Governor Mike DeWine supported the FDA and NIH in their attempt to combat COVID by bending every rule and every regulation when we have consistently been told it couldn't be done. March 2020, You signed an order stopping in-home services for neurodegenerative diseases across Ohio. You claimed you were doing this to protect the most vulnerable with an untried approach called flatten the curve. When that failed, you moved to a never-been-done-before experiment called control the curve. Overnight, I became my husband's physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech therapist, respiratory therapist, skilled nursing, and home health aide. As of today, that order has never been rescinded. Ohio ranks number 2 in the country for ALS cases, yet you stopped all services. In addition to cessation of services, you temporarily borrowed the funds set aside for research in the state and redistributed those same funds to COVID research. In-home waiver patients were given 2 options: remain in the home with family providing care unpaid, or be admitted to a long-term care facility that also accepts COVID-19 positive patients. This left us wondering how that theory protected the most vulnerable. We were one of the lucky ones being able to provide around-the-clock care, suctioning, breathing treatments, ADLs averaging 2 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period, while working from home to pay for much-needed insurance. I often think of the elderly couple with no medical background, just trying to fulfill the wishes of their terminally ill spouse. Ohioans are suffering due to the blatant disregard of you, Governor. We have nursing homes on lockdowns, refusing entry to providers, yet unable to provide transportation to vital services such as dialysis. The Healy platform trial at Ohio State had to pause enrollment screening at the urgent request of Governor Mike DeWine. Once the trial was allowed to restart, over 100 Ohioans that initially qualified no longer did, as their disease had progressed beyond the acceptance limits. For those reasons above, I will always and forever hold you, Governor Mike DeWine, responsible for accelerating the death of my husband and many others. Just like COVID-19, there is no treatment, no cure, and the fear of being on a vent struggling to breathe is very small for COVID. But for ALS, the use of a vent is a reality. It will happen. So tell me, Governor, what makes the life of one Ohioan worth more than the life of another? What right do you have to barter a community of people you have sworn you were protecting for months? When will you be rescinding your order, reducing fear and panic, allowing in-home services for your constituents? My husband is an Ohioan and he's dying too. When will you attack with the same urgency as you have COVID? When will you stop taking from the families of dying patients for the greater good? I recently read the words of a beautiful young lady that said, "If I die from this horrible disease, throw my body on the steps of Capitol Hill and let every Democrat and Republican who did nothing to facilitate access to treatment see what it means to steal the dreams away from a 36-year-old who had to suffer every day living like a zombie, attached to a ventilator, unable to breathe for herself. Let them see how a body weakens so much that you forget the feeling of a warm embrace because you can no longer raise your arms. Let them experience the fear and pain embedded in my eyes because I lost my voice and finally succumbed to being chained down with a trach. I refuse to be a statistic, a mere number waiting to be forgotten. My life matters and is worth fighting for." Governor Mike DeWine, you have refused to acknowledge any legislation for access to until treatment for COVID. Then you stripped every patient within this community of continuity of care. You best believe my husband's body will be on this doorstep when the time comes. For I believe your actions are directly responsible. While I firmly believe a non-clinical individual should never be permitted to make clinical decisions, you have sent your message loud and clear. Now I am sending mine. It is time for masks to come off, the kids to go back to school, and all patients to have access to treatment. As I have said in my 20-plus emails and letters since May, I welcome the opportunity to discuss with you. Maybe we will both learn something. In conclusion, I would like to say, I don't have a direct ear to the governor. I don't have the ability to help. I don't have the ability to make sure that my husband is permitted something basic, like dying with dignity during a pandemic. You do. And if you're unsure which way that you should vote or what you should do, before you were to vote, I have a sign-up sheet. I would like you to try on my shoes, sign up for a caregiver shift, and then maybe after that decide what you feel is best.
Thank you, Mrs. Benton. Are there any questions for this witness? Senator Thomas.
Well, first of all, ma'am, I pray that your husband live longer than what's, you said 5 years is the length of time based on his illness that he's expected to live. I pray that he lives much longer than that. I pray that they're not, that whoever made the decision, that that's incorrect. So my question to you, you said that the in-home care, the governor has, and I do have the ear of the governor, just as all of these folks do. You said that the in-home care was stopped as a result of the pandemic, and so your husband was not getting the care that he was getting prior to the pandemic. Is that what you indicated?
Through the chair. Mm-hmm. Yes. So when that order was made in March, that is correct. It stopped for neurodegenerative waiver patients in Ohio. Correct.
Follow up, Madam Chair.
Follow up.
So is that still in place now, or what?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Yes, it is myself, my 2 adult children that are in college, but of course have been sent home. We do 24-hour care, round the clock.
Okay, well, I personally, I promise you, I'll ask the governor's office. I'm going to have my staff call him. But if that's happening to you, it's happening to all of the in-home care services that...
Through the chair. That would be the neurodegenerative waiver patients in Ohio. Ohio, ranking number 2 cases in ALS, which is neurodegenerative. Mm-hmm. So you have ALS, MS, Parkinson's, mm-hmm. Any of those Ohioans on that program.
Madam Chair.
Hello.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. So he's carved out certain, according to you, he's carved out certain illnesses that no longer qualify for in-home care.
No, they most certainly qualify for
but
in-home care.
His order is saying that they basically can't.
The way that the order is written, it targets neurodegenerative patients, and that is the wording that is used as well.
Okay. I just want to get that clear.
Senator Thomas?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Yes.
So you've asked the same question like 2 or 3 times.
No,
is there an additional question in there?
No, I just wanted to get that clear. That
okay, so we got that clarified. Thank you. Are there any additional questions? All right, seeing none, thank you for being here today. The third and final witness slip that we did have turn in was for Stephen Flood.